I have a
something real quick. I'm going to go ahead because it's something that Adam had made mention of as well. And because because we talked about how the things that are exposed, Black people in particular, we've known for years. But something that has been happening over a long period of time is that a lot of what we know, we kind of dealt with it like the Republican Party did with Trump and his antics. It's like you see it, you know it, you'll whisper it in your own little corners, but you wouldn't come out in public with it. Now there was not to say that we have our warriors out there out front. I mean, saying
I was about to say, we say it. We talk about it.
But what I'm talking about though, there are some people in key positions. There are some people who have positions, and because of their position and the salaries attached to them, and the people and the system that pays them, they're afraid to say. Working in nonprofit, like I say, for years and years, I've seen it so many times. Talking to people, there's things that I would say because I'm just me. I'm going to say what I say, and they would come to me in private and in agreement. They'll say, I'm real happy you said that. That was real good. And I'm like, you could have said the same thing. But then as with my maturity, as I matured, I realized that, okay, everyone has to grow to that level of commitment to what it is that they believe, and willing to pay the cost and willing to see the loss. So that's something that did happen. I mean, and you have some people in white America who thought everything was everything because of that, because you're surrounded by Black people who would not say it, who would not agree. And so you have these bubbles of falsehood based on fear. So that and actually, I'm not saying that's the majority of us. I said I was one of them. I am one of them that say it just like I see it. But there are many who did deal with it from that same perspective, like a number of the Republicans did with Trump. Didn't agree, didn't like, would whisper, and so you keep this. So it's being perpetuated just by, hands off and just allowing it to be. So, I definitely want to touch on that piece right there. And when it comes down, because you asked Your Highness, was the damage worth it? Now I say that's, we shall see, because it depends on what we do to see was it worth it. Because, I believe there was damage done, but also too, it definitely presents a great opportunity, because now you have those who were once afraid to say and speak it. Now that it's out in the public, they feel safe to say. And I mean, even Black folks that feel safe to say that this is what's going on in the country. These are the ills of the country, and not fearing backlash, because it's out there now. It is out there. So now what we do with it lets us know if those last 4 years were worth it.
I want to continue on Steve's point about what we do, right? Look, the environment's been created. We've got, I think, not across the board, but most people acknowledge that there has been and remains an issue that needs to be addressed, however large you think, the impact of racism or systemic racism or bias, or however you want to frame it up is. But let's be solution oriented for a second. And I'm not going to say a lot here. I really want to pose a question to the group. Do we feel confident that we have a working definition of what our objective is? That is to say, what our expectations from an administration are, and where the line starts and stops, so we can also define what, as a people and as individuals, our responsibility is. Because I sometimes feel like we talk about this freedom or this liberation or all these things, and as much as those words I think we can all agree we want, what does that tangibly look like? What role does our government play in that? And then where do we as individuals and as people have to step up and start doing our individual part to contribute to whatever that objective is, right? Because I don't think, again, for me, it's ever clearly been defined. Because and I'll stop here. The problem I see is that if we don't have some working guidelines or parameters, we'll perpetually be stuck in this place where we're constantly talking about how terrible Trump is, or how evil everybody who voted for him is, or how bad systemic racism is, or whatever. So it's like, maybe it's milestones, right, to an end, or maybe there is no end. I don't know, but like, I don't ever hear the conversation going to a place where we're like, this is what it looks like. In reality, tangibly looks like in reality. And here's what I expect you, Mr. Biden, and your administration to do to help us get there.
Yeah, like I said, for people perish for a lack of vision. And see, this is the thing about it.
Just real quick, everybody, I'm going to just step out real quick. I'll be right back, but go ahead. Just 1 second.
Yeah, so you got the vision of America is what's needed at this point. There's things that's written. There's things that we publicize that is America. Okay, start there, because it's the big picture that you work towards. You create the big picture, and then you come back to where you are and build towards that picture. Honestly, build towards that picture.
But really quickly, Steve, I don't mean to cut you off, but even that alone, it's like, I feel like it's not objective, right? To say like,
no,
I don't know. Like, we can stay in that cycle of what you just said forever, and it's like there's no marker, there's no milestone to hit there.
Some KPIs.
But the thing about it is this. The milestone. But see, this is the thing. This is the thing. But see, that the thing that hasn't happened is breaking it down into those benchmarks to where this is workable. So this is the big picture. This is where we are. Now, from where we are, these are the steps that we need to take. And that's the part that I'm missing a lot in the conversations, are process conversations that deal with, okay, this is how we get there. We want this, but it does, well, dang, I hate that he stepped away, because process. Okay, cool. Because process takes time. These things take time. Processes take time. There are certain things that can be implemented quick, but the actual process of change takes time. Just like with integration, when it happened, when it was signed into law, that was an instant. And then from there, you go and do, you bring in law enforcement, National Guard, et cetera. Boom, that happened. But did integration actually happen in that moment? No, it was just law, which created consequences if you went against what the law says. That's all it did. So this is the thing that about it. Yes, you create the laws, you create the conditions, you create the environment, because that's what that's what crime and crazy is for, to define your society. You define your society saying, okay, this is what's crazy and this is what's criminal. You will end up locked up in an institution either way if you operate and behave outside of these, or operate in these areas of crime and crazy. So then from there, what you consider criminal and what you consider crazy, then has to shift, because that's the legal piece. Because unfortunately, some people in certain areas are still adolescents that require consequences in order to do what's beneficial. Because you have little kids who will, if there aren't any consequences to not looking both ways before crossing the street, and all the things that we teach our kids, there has to be some kind of consequences there. But then as you mature, you understand the benefit and you don't even think twice about it, because it's instilled in you. What's right about looking twice before looking both ways in respect, because it's called, and that's what it's called. The word is respect, and respect has to be developed. Respect is not something that's automatic. You have to get to know someone. Like, in order for me to respect anyone on this call, there's certain things that I have to get to know about you. There's things I can say right now that could disrespect every last one of you because I don't know you to that level. But then when you call me out and say, well, Steve, that was very disrespectful. At that point, I got to make a decision. Get to know you better, get you to get to know me better. And those are just the little pieces of the process. And see, that's the piece again, that word right there, process. We want the finished product, but we it's either the problem and finished product, but that's where we have to really talk about the process. And then that's what I'm talking about, like with administration and there's so many other things that we, what kind of steps are we going to take? Because this is not something that's going to be fixed overnight.
Just quick response to Richard. I think you're right, everything you said, but I do think that there are, for lack of a better word, KPIs, right? Like, I think when you're...
What's KPI?
Oh, I'm sorry, key performance indicators.
Performance indicators.
Like a business.
Okay.
But I think when you're talking to like the population, you talk in like these generalisms because, people don't want to hear like details like that, right? So like, remember when I worked, on the campaign a while ago, one of like the key notes was like when, Obama first came out, everyone was telling him, he's like, you're too much like a professor, right? You're getting too much into details. So he had to like retailer his message so that it was like, readily digestible for like mass consumption, right? So he started saying more generalized messages on what it was, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't a plan behind it and then that plan wasn't detailed. It just means that if you're like on like a campaign trail or you're in a debate, like you're not going to be like going into, 16% of, or whatever, 15 to 20% of the population's black. Small businesses are only owned by 4%. These are the level of detail of what we should do to increase it. We want to make credit in this more available. We want to make additional, we want to increase funding to like the Small Business Administration, stuff like that. Like, well, like I want to hear that stuff, but I think like as like the population, and hell, like look at Trump, right? Like the reason like his message was like so like well received is because like he didn't get in.
No plan.
He didn't get into those details, right? Like
at all.
That's the problem because message. I'm sorry to cut you off, but the message is manipulated. You know what I'm saying? Like if you don't know those details. I've heard arguments that Obama was, worse for this or that community, and I've heard arguments that Trump is worse or whatever for this community. So it's like, without getting into those details and having those milestones widely recognized and acknowledged and really like subscribe or prescribed to, then like you're subject to messaging. You're subject to brand. You know what I'm saying? Marketing.
But you're always going to be to an extent, right? Because like people don't want to get into those details, right?
Yeah.
Like how many people like the COVID relief plans, right? One of those passed by the House, one of those passed by the Senate. How many people read that, right? No one, right? Like, no, I did, but like, I'm a nerd. Most people don't go through and read those things. They don't want to hear the details and get into like those actual measurable, indicators of whether things are going, one way or the other. They're more receptive to like these generalized messages because they're easy to digest, right? And they're easy to understand. And, but like I said, like if you go to like a lot of these people, like most politicians, they have pretty detailed plans, right? Saying, we want to increase funding here by this much. And the reason we're increasing fund, like, the reason we're like doubling funding, for example, to like the SBA, which is like, I think under Biden's plan, we're doing that to create more economic opportunity, more mobility in the economy for small business owners, for black people. That's a very measurable thing. But, do people want to hear this? Like, do people want to like walk through and go through like these things point by point? I do, but like, the messaging and polling beyond like what polling is, like the data shows that people don't want to hear that. They don't want to get into that level of granularity. And so like you have to communicate the message in a way that's going to be digested with people, and they're going to listen, and then they're going to engage. And then when you get down to the nitty gritty of like the actual, to build on Steve's point, the process of actually getting across those changes, those people aren't really listening and involved at that point, right? Now you're into like the people who are actually doing the groundwork and actually getting these things done and getting the legislation passed.
Yeah, I saw Charles, but I got something I want to say, but I did see Charles say, like he was going to say something.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, Charles.
It's not particularly relevant. I was going to mention that this is not a problem just for like the black community. Like this is the nation at large, right? Like
for sure.
We're not voting based on real shit. We're voting based on what has the best optics. Like, this is why we have a binary system. It's like, do you want this package or this package? Because they're like, oh, I like business, I must be a Republican. I care about other people, I must be Democrat. Like, that's why we have the problem we have. So it's like, how do we, like I feel like our purpose, the people on this call right now, our job to a degree is like get deeper, because no one has time for the granular stuff. So like, I will get into some of these like more granular like how-tos, because if we're not going to do it, I'm not really sure who is, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many issues that
Right.
so many issues that plague the Black community. But like, yeah, I mean, you get into them, right? Health disparities, access to education and how we fix that, and like all the steps that have been listed by different people on, or different politicians on their policies on how to do that. Like, it's there, you know what I mean? Like, it's there. Well, for most politicians, it's there. You just got to like do a little bit of legwork and look into it, right? But like I said, I think most people like don't want to do that.
Yeah,
I don't want to hear that.
We got Steve. But the thing about it is this, though. The thing,
Steve, I'll go. But yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
But see, this is the thing about it, and I mentioned before, when something happens in mass, then you have to look at it systemically. Why is it that this great amount of people in this country, why is there such a huge number of people who are not concerned with the details? And then when you look at a lot of the media and what's going on, I mean, in my eyesight, I see this society being dumbed down like crazy. And I do see it as a concerted effort to do so. I mean, when you have something as important as insurance being peddled by a quacking duck, I mean, that's insane. That's the insurance is entirely. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I was wondering what you were talking about. Like, what?
Exactly. You're going to peddle insurance, something so critical to life in America and anywhere else it's used, with a duck. Yeah, there's a lot of details that you don't want. And you look how cartoonish the advertising campaigns are for things that are so critical for our lives. I look at that. So yeah, like what Charles may mention, it's bigger than a risk. It's actually a societal piece from the standpoint that it really seems like, okay, there's a concerted effort to truly dumb society down, so that there is a level of control over society, as opposed to having people think, really promote thinking.
Yeah,
I think this is where we really see the biggest difference between, like, particularly my perspective on the situation. And I think, well, just because Your Highness and I have talked so much of this at length, and then obviously hearing you say it now, like, when I see the same things that you see, Steve, I see no one making decisions for control in terms of like political parties. And like that absence is where we're getting all this dumbed down from, because I don't know if you've seen The Social Dilemma, or, I mean, there's tons of content out here about this topic, but like advertisers are the people manipulating us, not like the powers that be. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and it doesn't mean it's not a problem. In fact, I would argue it's a bigger problem, because this is like just pure unbridled capitalism. And I don't think we need a conspiracy against Black people or anybody else to be concerned. We should be concerned with like the way less sexy real danger of just like an unbridled advertising model, right? And social media and the way those things work, and these algorithms that are continuing to get smarter and smarter than we are. And that's scary enough.
Real quick.
But who says advertisers are not a component of the power that be there?
Yeah, I was gonna
they can.
That's the thing.
They can be, I suppose.
But it's a huge piece of the powers that be is the advertisement. Because it hits people
but Coca-Cola wants your money just as much as they want mine. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
That's the point that Charles is making. Like, it's not like I
think we're saying the same thing.
Coca-Cola isn't inherently like, racist. They just want money, right? They'll take the money from whoever they give it to.
Right.
Yeah. Whoever's going to give it to them.
Race wasn't. But I wasn't bringing up. I was talking about because I was agreeing with Charles from the standpoint that it being the dumbing down of society is a truly societal issue. societal, not just so much of say, okay, specifically for any particular group, but because I'm seeing it cross the board, this dumbing
Understood.
down. And that's
Not
what I was
my
saying
fault
about
to assume the powers that be. I have a,
yeah,
I mean, I
because
assume
for me the
has a
powers that be
connotation in this context.
For me the powers that be are those that truly influence the masses.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and I mean that's the thing I was gonna bring up. And I think this is not. I think this is what I know, honestly. The reason why people are just not on the same page because one, everything has to be clearly defined. You're speaking with so many different connotations. Especially the English language. One word could mean 20 things. So just that connection, that like an example you use, Charles, like people maybe see like advertisement as not being connected to the powers that be or control, because everything is like in a segment like that has nothing to do with that. But we can show so much living proof evidence wise how it is, because like you said also, Steve, as well, dummy down. And not going back to Adam, nobody really wants to know the details because people are groomed in a way to be consumers. So advertising is honestly the most powerful method of control when you look at it. Psychologically, from my examining of life, the most powerful psychological tool ever invented was that of the motion picture. Because out of all of our five senses, as humans, we seem to value our sense of sight the most. What we see with our eyes and it stains our head, you believe. A lot of times. I like that one time in a movie called Swordfish, it was early 2000, John Travolta, Halle Berry. And remember at the end, they were like, they faked like the helicopter death or whatever. And he was like, what the mind sees and the ears hear, what the eyes see and the ears hear, the mind believe. Now I was just like, yeah, pretty much. You know what I'm saying? Like, so people that are set up to control, it's more than just an individual. That's why it's more faceless with me, because obviously it's spanning generations. They're going to use advertisement in business because this is capitalism. This is the nature of the system. And it spans across education, economics, religion, everything. It's tied into capitalism. It's just how it works. What is capitalism? Making money. How do you do that? You advertise, you set up business models, you brand people. Branding is like when you branding like a cattle, like they used to brand slaves, or when they brand fraternity and sororities or whatever, like when you get branded, it stains into your mind. So these are the methods that if I was set up myself personally to control, and I'm dropped into the modern 21st century US, I'm hitting the advertisement, I'm hitting the products, I'm hitting the business wise, because everybody is really groomed to be professional consumers. Most people don't want to know because they don't really give a damn, because we've been groomed and I give a damn. When you really look at it, it's a rat race. Everybody's going for themselves, going for theirs. It's about having fun. It's about making money, and just make it work for me. I really don't care what's going on. The U.S., I've always said as well, the U.S. citizens are the reason why the U.S. is so far ahead in my personal observation experience in life with other countries, because they're able to keep their citizens, their people in the dark the best. Patronize them with certain things, and then they don't really give a damn about what resources they're taking from Africa or Asia. Right? As long as they can get their shit, they don't care. You know what I'm saying? So it matters here too. We don't care. We don't really care. I don't really know what politics and all this shit means. I just gonna, like you see red and blue, I'm gonna get emotionally. Oh, that's me. You know what I'm saying? That's like you were saying, Richard, earlier, like, oh, that's me. I'm on this side. Oh, I'm on that side. No one really wants to know, because we were kind of groomed in a really careless attitude growing up. We're not really educated. When you look at the education level of the U.S. citizens compared to other countries, it's like ridiculous, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, it's not really, education is not promoted. Self-education is not promoted. Responsibility is not promoted. Being involved is not promoted. What is promoted is buying and selling, and watching commercials and watching shows and rallying up behind names, rallying up behind brands, because your whole life is based on brands. Your identity is based on brands. Everything that you're doing is based on brands. That's the reality. So advertising is actually one of the most instrumental tools you can use in control, because the business model of capitalism thrives in the heart of each one of us in society, some more than others. So, and then honestly, tied in earlier, we were saying, like, what I found out is, what I'm looking at through the years, like more local government, honestly, and getting involved seems to be more impactful than national and federal government. from a lot of levels, you know what I'm saying? So, and I started to open my mind up to even that more, you know, through the latter years, like last 5 to 10 years, because I'm like, okay, you can get involved more locally and get some shit going, and then maybe that can be a model for national wise, you know. So, but you know, just, you know, freedom and liberation, like I said, using those words, like I know you were saying, Rich, about that earlier, like what do these things mean? I agree totally. We need to define these things. And one of the main things, like what you said, Charles, like people like us coming together and talking about it, because like you said, I see that as well. We don't do it. Who's going to do it? I was watching Mike Tyson Hot Boxing podcast last night with Joe Button on there. And Joe Button was on it about a year ago, him and his clique. And one of the lines he said, man, like he was like, podcasting is going to tell the world about the world. He was like, because nobody else ain't doing it. He was like, these platforms need to be highlighted, because they was talking about giving awards and they need to highlight these things more. And it's not really the podcasting, it's really the essence of people talking how they really
long
want to
form.
talk. People want to have real conversation. People are tired of the fake talk. That's the bigger, the system is a bigger problem. Just electing a president, it's a bigger thing. But the people that's up top, they know the mode of the country, and they're exploiting that. They're exploiting that and using people emotions against them. This shit is, I mean, you know, the people, we've always said the best business people, the people who have the most money, usually are the best con artists. Usually, you know what I'm saying? Like you got to be able. You don't get billions of dollars by saving checks. You know what I'm saying? You got to be willing to do some shit to get what you get. You know, that's just how the real world works. You know, so you have some exceptions, you have some cases, you always have exceptions to every rule, but you have to be willing to do some shit and step on some people and make some moves consciously to get where you got to get. And this is the problem. It's a bigger crutch. It's a societal thing. I agree with Steve, what you were saying, Charles, what you were saying, and some of y'all, like, it ties in, it just levels the election. I know we're tying it into what's going on right now, but this shit is way deeper, and people have to be willing to come out in the open and do what we're doing, because this is going to make people be more educated, because no one gives a damn, man. No one cares.